I don't have a script for this. I was just thinking that I should probably document something about what's gone on over the past few years. Ultimately ending with my having surgery. I'm going to be having, well, I don't know if you want to call it brain surgery, cranial surgery, ear surgery. It's kind of all three of those things mixed in together. Sometime within the next week to 10 days. I have been working towards this for 3 solid years. 3 years ago, I noticed a definite hearing loss in my right ear. And it kind of felt like, when you take a shower, when you go swimming and there's water left in your ear, and, if you just tilt your head, it'll drain out. This never drained out. It just always felt that pressure, and that you could hear the watery sound, that was in there, still in there. I went through 2 years of MRIs, a couple CAT scans, 2 lumbar punctures. One of those included dye contrast. They inserted a needle in my spine, injected me with dye, hung me upside down for a while, so that apparently that was to help rush the dye into my brain, and then did another MRI. And all of that resulted in it didn't matter that in the course of 2 years I'd had an outpatient procedure just to have a doctor, otolaryngologist, slice open my eardrum and to insert a tube. You may have heard about children having this done quite often. Kids that are really prone to ear infections, they'll often have a tube inserted. It just allows pressure to escape and things like that. The doctor, when he inserted the tube, just scads of clear fluid came gushing out. I mean, it was flowing. He was fighting against the current to get that tube into my eardrum. And this specialist, this person to whom I'd gone for a solution, didn't even make an attempt to capture a single drop of it. Weeks later, and I don't Google medical information. I don't go on to WebMD, things like that. I'm not a hypochondriac, so I didn't go looking for what this might be. I just knew that it didn't make sense that he had not collected any of this fluid that was pouring out of my ear. He later left it for me to do, and by that time it's trickling out, but it's just like a sheen against my skin. I couldn't collect any. And when I was finally able to collect enough for some kind of a lab test, it was never enough. They couldn't determine whether or not what the fluid was. And rather than recommend any other procedures or give me any guidance, my otolaryngologist, he decided that because I'm, mid to late 50s now, and type 2 diabetic and obese, that this is my problem, this is my fault, is how it really was put on to me. That it was my A1C that was out of control, and it was 9 point something at the time, so it was higher than it needed to be, but that's what was causing it. That I probably had some low-grade infection in my ear at some time, and because of my not having my A1C under control, I now had the deafness, and I had this fluid was just being generated magically. And I'm like, and I'm curious. I'm like, but there's no system in there that would create fluid. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I just from what I remember from school, when you see the basic, they have you the basic bones of the ear and all that, the little hammer and anvil and all that. Yeah, there's nothing that could create a fluid. Our ears produce earwax, which was his other theory, that I must just have an earwax. He's an otolaryngologist. The guy's supposed to be a specialist in the inner ear. He's actually a surgeon. And it's all within the same medical network to which I'd belonged a long time. Accompanying all of the fluid were severe migraines and a lot of nausea. And my favorite, spontaneous vomiting. I could be at my desk at work. I could be walking down the hall at home. I could be driving my car. And I would have to pull over because I'm going to start dry heaving. And it would just happen. Not always accompanied by the headaches, not always accompanied by the vertigo. I was also seeing a neurologist. And the neurologist, I've never received anything in all of these years for the pain of the migraines. Medications were prescribed and attempts were made to calm down the vertigo aspect, but they didn't work. And I always got this definite kind of like a pat on the head, like, oh, you poor old thing, you're probably just lonely and want to go to the doctor. Or, oh, honey, you know what, if you just dropped those, 70 pounds, 80 pounds and got down to a good weight, then all of your problems would end. Go to my primary care physician, and he was the third one. He backed up the diagnosis that this was all on me, that it was my A1C out of control. And so I just left floundering. In the process, I had only been working for a very short time, like a year, before the migraines and everything else got so severe that I really began missing work. I missed so much work that I ended up, bless their hearts that kept me, but I have to go down to part-time. And again, it's not my desire, but honestly, it's what's fair for the company, because I've not been able to work those hours because of this condition. And then one day, Jody wakes up and goes, you know what? Go online, find another otolaryngologist. It's been 2 years listening to them, 2 years trying to get my A1C under control, 2 years of just battling and feeling disbelieved, knowing that I was not being listened to. And to make things worse, 3 doctors, my primary care physician, a neurologist, and an otolaryngologist, all 3 of these people telling me again and again that things aren't right. In the meantime, I'm still having all of the same symptoms. Everything is still going wrong, because I have a Mach 4 headache. I call it Machs, because, like on a scale from 1 to 10, I have head pressure every day around a 4. Sometimes it ends up to a 6 or 7. It doesn't feel great. Other times it hits the 9 or 10, and if it weren't for the fact that I've seen so many brain scans, I would think that I'm having an aneurysm or something. It just feels like, you'll be shocked if you get through this. The pain gets pretty intense. And tears are starting to flow, but it's because I am so angry. I'm angry at my medical team that left everything on my shoulders for all those years, caused my quality of life to diminish greatly. My hearing has gotten so much worse. And when your hearing gets bad, it is very difficult to continually connect with people around you. I can't tell if people are talking to me when I'm in the same room as they are. That kind of thing. I apologize. So, I went outside the network. Found a doctor. When I saw her, she took a look and immediately said, "Oh, looks like you have CSF leaking from your right ear." And I'm like, "Okay." And she went, "CSF, cranial spinal fluid." I went, "Uh-huh." Yeah, that had been mentioned at least once during the time that I was seeing those other doctors, but they said no. That it's just, and she went, "No." She says, "Let's go ahead and do the surgery." She says, "Let's get let me get in there and replace this tube, and see what happens." And she did. And she told me that she could see immediately, just with her knowledge. She says, "You have a Tegmen defect." She says, "I'm going to have a test done to confirm that." She says, "And we will find some way to get more fluid drawn." Every time she would draw fluid, I mean, she would go in there with a microfine needle, drawing this fluid, odorless, colorless, the same viscosity as pretty much as water, maybe a little thicker. I mean, but not much. Like thinner than baby oil. But I mean, anyway, it took a number of times because the labs were not listening to the doctor. She'd say, "Do this kind of test on it," meaning this is a micro amount that I'm giving you. But instead they just process it and they go, "Oh, not enough." And she went, "I know, because you keep on burning the samples." So finally got it in there. Finally got the definite diagnosis. Yes. So now what this is that I have a thinning of the tympanic, the Tegmen, sorry. The Tegmen area. It's where the skull is, just above the middle ear. I have a defect. The Tegmen defect is that it's eroded. Who knows how? They don't know how. I have looked that up since, and it could have been something that I was born with. A thinning in the skull right there that just took this long to finally go done. It opened up. I somehow or another, we don't know how. I've not had a serious fall. I've never hit my head against anything like that. But the dura, which is the membrane surrounding the brain, ruptured. And so right above my middle ear, right in here, I've got a hole in my skull and a rip in my brain sac. And it is channeling spinal fluid into this whole section of my head. The first CAT scans and such, it shows a lot of black and white over here. The black would be where the air's supposed to be, because bones have air within them. There's cells. There's supposed to be vacant parts here and there for things to function properly. And over here, it just looks like white noise. Every little hole in my bones and everything else that's supposed to have air is filled with CSF. My middle ear is filled with CSF. The bones aren't working for two reasons. One is it's full of fluid and it can't move. And the other is that the dura is actually coming through the little defect and gently pushing down on the hammer and anvil within my ear. So, year 3. I am going in for brain surgery in a couple of weeks. My wonderful, thank goodness I found her, otolaryngologist, has spoken with a neurosurgeon whom she trusts, and I trust her, so I trust him. And actually, having spoken to him just once and his staff, I really do feel like I'm in good hands. So I can't really come back and blame anybody for what's possibly going to happen. But the surgery is going to entail, and yes, I've got long hair. But yeah, we're going to shave here. There's going to be like an S-shaped incision, from what I understand. Otolaryngologist is going to drill in behind here, cut and drill and suction and everything else, getting as much of that fluid as she can out of all of those pockets to give me the best, because it's not draining, it can't drain. And the neurosurgeon, he's going to go up top and stitch the dura shut and take some bone off of a thicker part of my skull and create a patch. And yeah, so this surgery will definitely stop the flow of CSF. It may not cure my migraines, it may not cure the vertigo, it may not cure the vomiting, and it may not restore my hearing. And it may leave me with facial paralysis on the right side. It looks like the sheath of facial nerves has kind of adhered to the ruptured dura as it had tried to heal or something, I guess. So they're going to have to also very possibly separate those. And so this may be a thing of the past in a couple of weeks. But I have to have this done. You can't, that I have gotten by without getting meningitis or any other conditions worse than what are now the symptoms of the CSF leak. It's quite, I'm again grateful. So yeah, moral of the story: trust yourself, check yourself, make sure that you're not a hypochondriac. But it took me years. It took me years of listening to people who should have known what they were talking about and didn't. And I had a nagging doubt the entire time, and I did not listen to that. I did not advocate for myself. Not until I met this new doctor, until I found her and started seeing her. So at this point, I don't know what my quality of life is going to be like after this. Except it will have improved because I won't have, brain infection will be taken off the table. That's kind of a big one. I don't know how long the recovery period will be. I guess 6 weeks on the inside, longer on the outside. I also have preventative breast cancer surgery that I have to do after that I've healed from this. We're staggering the surgeries. Everybody agreed, hey, brain surgery first. Because I'm precancerous. I don't yet have cancer. So after I've recovered from this, I need to have the other surgery. And yeah. They also found something else, a nodule on one of my adrenal glands atop my right kidney. The right side of my body, I tell ya. But that's something that is also, it's backburnered. So we've got the brain surgery, the breast cancer, and then we'll worry about whatever my adrenal gland is doing. Apparently it's not shooting out crazy hormones yet, so it can wait. Yeah, not something anybody expects. But you roll with it. You can just keep on going. Because I'm here for the duration. Damn it. Not getting rid of me that easily. So, I want to thank all of my family, my friends, for how incredibly supportive you've been for years. You still reach out to me. You still respond to me. You haven't gone, oh God, it's her again and her brain problems. I'm not crazy. I've been tested. Yeah, it's real. And I'm a little scared. But only a little bit, because again, I know this has to happen. There's an inevitability to it. It doesn't make any sense to be frightened of something that has to occur. I just very much hope and ask you to join me in bolstering up that hope. Send good vibes. Send prayers. Light a candle. Whatever it is y'all do when wishing somebody well. And even those of you that don't know me really well, it's a good smile. And I'd like to see this continue. So picture me happy thoughts. Picture me smiling. Gray-haired and smiling. And I'll post again once I'm out of surgery and on the mend. And thank you so much for being here. Love to all. And never forget, life. Life is beautiful.